For our next section, we have a panel, and I'm going to introduce Ralph Benko. He is the principal at ralphbenko.com. He's an attorney and a senior counselor to the American Blockchain PAC, whose advisory board is chaired by blockchain co-inventor Scott Stornetta. It's co-founded and is advising several blockchain startups working in or with 3 White House administrations, 2 executive branch agencies, 2 Congresses, and an internationally award-winning and critically acclaimed writer, Ralph. Are you ready? Here we go. What his panel is going to be covering is funding blockchain projects.
Well, this is what we're all here for. Show me the money. So, gentlemen, as the experts of this extremely intriguing point, thank you. Dr. Stornetta, who invented the blockchain and who hopefully most of you will be having a chance to meet tonight, said that it lay dormant until 1991 until somebody, meaning Satoshi, decided to identify it with money, and then all of a sudden it became amazingly interesting. So if each of you would introduce yourself briefly, 30 seconds or so, and then each of you share your wisdom with us. Here you go. Bill Rockwood.
Hi, my name's Bill Rockwood. I'm a Deputy Legislative Director for Congressman Darren Soto. He's one of the co-chairs of the Congressional Blockchain Caucus. We've introduced 15 bills, passed 3 on the issue, a lot of amendments, and have done a lot of work in Congress. You know, we have a lot of work left to do, but why we're here is we've gotten a lot of stuff in the budget to seed pilot programs and feasibility studies for blockchain programs. So look forward to chatting today.
Hello. My name is Eugene Morozov, and I represent a community, Everscale community, globally distributed. We have close to 1 million members at the moment, and we have experimented with a variety of ways of funding specific projects. So I'll be happy to share some of those with you today.
Afternoon. My name is Barry Johnson.
Gerard, we need your reality distortion field again.
Good afternoon. There it is. Good afternoon. My name is Barry Johnson. I'm with the National Science Foundation. I'm director of the Division of Translational Impacts there, and we fund startup companies and a variety of technologies, as well as translational research, as well as entrepreneurial training programs. And so I look forward to talking with you all about all of those. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. So, Bill, you've introduced, I think, much legislation, or you've been instrumental in the introduction of more legislation than any other legislative assistant working on Capitol Hill. True or false?
I think it's true, but I should probably be humble and say no.
Okay, good. Well, bring it on.
Yeah, sure.
Please tell us. Please tell us what you know about funding blockchain projects in 4 minutes. Tell us everything there is to know in 4 minutes.
All right. No pressure. So first of all, thank you for inviting me to be here. I have to kick off and say my views are my own and do not necessarily represent those of the congressman or the Blockchain Caucus. So with that, I think you have a great panel here, and I'll use this as a great, there's a lot of news about bills and bad provisions, and that eats up a lot of press. You know, very important, and a lot of what the agencies are doing are incredibly important, and we want things to move faster. But kind of an alternative avenue that's less paid attention to, even to members of Congress and staff, is, you know, by the Constitution, the funding of the federal government flows through Congress. So that role can come with a lot of things. So with, like, we have an agency person, they already have great people doing what they're doing, but there's some ambiguity when you have something like here's $100 million for your office to do emerging technology research, or like what that means. And there's always the importance of maintaining those funding initiatives, but there's some ambiguity in what that actually applies to sometimes. Is blockchain included in the bucket of emerging technologies? Are there pilot programs being developed? Because a lot of times those funding projects draw down on updating old technology or for things that are already in the pipe works. So when things like blockchain and crypto come about that can be a true transformative technology, it's not always clear, even if folks want to do more at the agency level, whether their authority applies. So what we've done through the appropriations or budget process is we've drafted a lot of language past, I think, 39 individual pieces, just saying, hey, Agency X, blockchain or crypto would be a great use case to address something you're already trying to solve. The one that's furthest along is our FDA food tracing program, where I think folks might be familiar with the romaine lettuce outbreak. A couple years ago, it got taken off the shelves, couldn't eat at Chipotle, all that stuff. But with our current system, it took 9 months to identify where it came from. That's problematic. And it was also only localized to the state of Arizona. So it's a problem. Hey, blockchain does supply chain really well. So we just seeded over multiple years incrementally, hey, feasibility study, here's $2 million for a pilot. Guess what? It worked well. So now what do we need to do next year? We need to plus up the funding even more. So our whole goal is to seed these ideas where there are a lot of great government expertise already. Let's just say hey, blockchain can help with some things you're already working on, and we've just, I call it throwing darts at the dartboard. We've thrown a lot of darts to fund various pilots, and so when these bills come about for regulatory clarity, we can point to a track record of success. Hey, these 6 agencies are already doing proof of concept and have done real tangible things. So when people ask why we should care about crypto and blockchain, we can say the government's actually already doing it, and it's working out pretty well.
Thank you, Bill. You said the magic words, plus up funding. Well done. Okay. Now, thank you for pitch hitting for us, since we had a couple of people who were unable to show up.
Sure. First of all, we can only dream of those numbers that you mentioned. The way we started as a community is essentially a contest system. Any member of the community could come up and make a proposal. Let's run a contest to develop this. And let's establish rewards. The highest reward in my memory, I think, was paid to a group of cryptographers for designing what's called Groth 16 technology as it's applicable to voting, and I believe it was like $200,000. So any member of the community can come up and suggest. Now, if through expressing positive or negative opinions, if the community supported running a particular contest and appropriate awards to be established, and again, all of those were not paid in US dollars, all of those were paid in Everscale token, fungible token called Ever. So if it was supported by community, then the contest was run. It required a very detailed technical description of the deliverables, so that then a panel of judges, which were nominated again by the community, who were consisting of experts in this particular field, would then look at the solutions to determine how close they are to the requirements. And if they were close to the requirements and they were best overall, then a panel of judges would assign a space, like first space, second space, third space. So usually rewards were given for like best 3 or best 5 solutions, just to get the interest of more of teams and not focus just on a one sort of winner. Then the contest happened. Now, we ran many contests in very different fields, applicable development of particular software, working on a particular solution, presenting an application that would address some issues. So there were a variety of those across the board. Now, we've done that for about 1.5 years. And we came to realization that the system was not perfect. Neither system is probably perfect. What happened is people tried to get together to essentially present projects that didn't have very big value, but because they tried to collude with other members of the community, more votes went towards those solutions. And then ultimately, it became evident that the community funding is not spent 100% optimally. So we had to change the contest system to a grant system. So essentially, after running contests, we've started experimenting with grants where people would come and actually show something that they've done already. And then the community would reward the solutions that actually made sense and were applicable and were useful and used by community members. And so we've kind of tried both the system of contests, the system of grants, and came to realization that it must be a combination of those two, and maybe something else even. Maybe some like centrally ordered work as well, right? When there's a particular need, especially if it needed to be done fast, right? None of the community elected processes could be done in a quick time frame. No DAO is in a rush to vote. We know that by now. And so in order to improve the quality of work and sort of increase the value for the token one is receiving after spending community funding, we came to a realization that it's a very complex issue. It needs to be multifaceted, so to say. There should be an element of competitiveness contest. There should be an element of having achieved something already. And there should be an element of how closely the job relates to a need, a specific need. So at the moment, it's a combination of those three. Thank you.
Now, Dr. Johnson, I was just yesterday at the behest of a colleague of mine reading Vannevar Bush's response to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which is the charter document for the National Science Foundation, and which was alluded to by President Biden in a request about where we go from here. So you represent a very iconic agency, and thank you for coming for you to tell us about funding blockchain projects.
Great. Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be here, and I really appreciate the opportunity. For those of you that might not be familiar with the National Science Foundation, it was created by Congress in 1950. So we've been around starting right after World War II to maintain and enhance scientific leadership within the United States. And so the mission for the foundation was to promote the progress of science, but then that mission statement goes on to say to enhance the nation's health, prosperity, welfare, and to secure the nation's defense. And so we promote the progress of science, but we do so with purpose. And that's really the heart and soul of the directorate that I'm a part of, a new directorate that was created back in March, the Directorate for Technology, Innovation, and Partnerships. And the purpose of that directorate is to take the progress we make in science and translate that out into commercial success, and to promote that commercialization. And we do that with a handful of projects or programs that are in my division that I'm responsible for. One is called Partnerships for Innovation. That's where we fund those that have been funded by NSF to do basic research. We then fund them to do translational research. The goal is to do a proof of concept prototype, a proof of concept experiment, something that demonstrates that the technology coming out of that basic research has an alignment with a commercial need and a market opportunity. So that's our first program. The second program is our small business program, Small Business Innovation Research, Small Business Technology Transfer. Most people don't realize, even if they know of that program, that the National Science Foundation started that program in the 1970s. with the goal of creating commercialization opportunities out of the basic research that we fund. We provide, through this program, up to $2 million to a company. We take no equity, we take no royalties. It's simply a grant to help you develop your company and your idea. The niche that the National Science Foundation is focused on is funding companies that are brand new, that have technology risks, and we want to help them determine and identify ways to mitigate that risk. I know from my personal experience with my own startup that most investors, private investors, don't want to fund technical risk. They're okay funding market risk or business risk or scaling risk, but they don't want to fund technical risk. So what we're focused on is providing money to solve technical risk, to enable that company to get to the point that the private sector can take them over and move them forward. And so that's our small business program. Small business program, we fund about 300 projects a year in phase one, which is a feasibility phase, and then we fund somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 90 projects in so-called phase two. And then we have a phase 2B program where we will provide matching funds for private investment that you can bring into your company. So once you've mitigated that technical risk, you've gotten to the point that the private sector is interested, we want to incentivize the private sector to come on board, and so we'll provide 50 cents on the dollar up to $500,000 of NSF's money, taxpayer money, to invest in that company. Again, taking no equity, taking no royalties. It's simply a grant to help you attract private sector investment. And so the small business program, again, has been around for a long time. We've had a lot of successes. We funded Qualcomm when they were a startup company, for example. We funded Symantec when they were a startup company. More recently, we funded a company called Ginkgo Bioworks, which is a synthetic biology company that now is a publicly traded company with a market valuation of several $billion, so a very successful company. So we have tremendous successes, but again, focused on technology risk and mitigating that risk, being the first money to come into that company to help it get going. The last program that I want to highlight is our entrepreneurial training program. A lot of startups, as you know, high-tech startups come out of universities. And one of the problems with startups oftentimes is that they create a product that nobody wants. The problem is they have not done the work of aligning their value proposition and their product definition with a market need. And so they build something that the technology is great and wonderful, but does anybody care about it enough to buy the product? And so the whole purpose of I-Corps is to train faculty and students to help them identify, do they have a product definition and a value proposition that aligns with a market need? And we support some 300 teams a year to go through this training program. And if you're interested in the results of it, we're obligated to provide a report to Congress every 2 years. We did so in 2019. We did so in 2021. The next one will be coming out in January of 2023. It highlights the teams that have gone through, how many companies have been formed out of that training, how much money they've been able to raise from the private sector, and gives case studies and examples of some of the success stories. But I think it's important to note that out of the teams that go through that training, 60% of them conclude that they don't have anything that they should commercialize. They need to go back to the lab, they need to go back to the drawing board and figure out something that will resonate with a commercial need and a market need. They simply don't have it yet. And that's important because they fail quickly. They identified the lack of a market need before they waste their time, energy, and possibly other people's money creating something that the world just doesn't need or want. So those are the programs that we have, all again focused on stimulating the commercialization of basic research results coming out of the programs that we fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Just a couple of observations before we do our lightning round, and then turn it over to whatever the next panel is, and that is, I'm sure you know, but not everybody in this room does. The reputation of your agency for being non-bureaucratic is superb. Okay, it is unlike the criticism laid against a lot of federal agencies is that they're just sort of very procedural, okay, as opposed to creative. And your reputation is very results-oriented, very value-oriented, and very streamlined in terms of the process. So those who apply for money for your small business thing, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's an expedited process. It's light on the red tape, and it's fast in terms of the steps that you have to take between starting the process and finding out whether or not you're going to be funded and to what degree.
Yes, and thank you so much for saying that. And if I could take 30 seconds, if you have interest in our program, you can go to seedfund.nsf.gov. You'll find everything that you need.
Look at all
there.
those pens being put to paper. Would you say that again? Because apparently you've hit a nerve.
The seedfund.nsf.gov. And the process for a small business to apply is as streamlined as we can make it. We start with a project pitch. It's 3 pages. You go in, you fill out your 3 pages. We review that to determine if it aligns with our goals within the program. Do you have a technology, an innovation? Is there a technology risk? Those types of things. If that alignment exists, then you'd be invited to submit a proposal. And you then submit a proposal for the first phase of the program. And so we do go through that process. The whole purpose of that pitch is to give you a quick no. You know, when I was raising money for my company, the second best answer I could get was no, as long as I got it quickly. But if I wasted a year spending time trying to raise money and then got a no from you, it really was painful. And so a quick no is what we're trying to do in that project pitch.
Okay, the other point is that in the 1960s and 70s, the federal budget committed something like 3% of its discretionary funding to research and development. Okay, this is really very important because the dividends that paid were astronomical. Okay, the return on investment for that 3% was extraordinary. And the whole chips industry, for instance, was essentially funded by the Defense Department's buying and NASA's buying chips, which were then not commercially viable based upon their expense, but because of the learning curve by the purchase of this for national security and space exploration purposes, it drove down the price to the point where now we can have, in 1991, I was just reading an article in Wired yesterday, an iPhone 12, and this is an iPhone 13, okay, would have cost $101 million to build, okay? Now, this cost me $1,000, not including the discounts I got from Verizon, okay? Every iPhone now has more computing power than the entire Apollo program, by a lot. So, and of course, the computers back then took up rooms and refrigeration and so forth, and now we can execute trillions of operations per second. So it really is, with begrudging apology to my libertarian friends who live by the code that the government can do no right, we've disproved that in practice. Now, the sad thing, though, is that the percentage of the federal government that is now going into R&D has dropped to under 1%, while China, our merry rival, is pumping it up at astronomical rates. So, Bill, good work on the CHIPS and Science program, but I was told by one of my spies in the House of Power that of the $200 billion that was authorized for that, the CHIPS money was also appropriated, but the science money has been authorized but is awaiting appropriation.
Yet to.
Yet to. So I'm hoping that we will all cheer you on to transfer that $150 billion.
Can I jump in?
Please do. I put you on the hot seat. You might as well jump.
And I like the space race NASA comparison. I think we're in an analogous position now except the role of the private sector has changed. You know, where I think a lot of the original R&D stuff could be hyper-concentrated because computing power is very limited, had to concentrate resources. I think we're in a similar moment, and that's why it's great your organization is doing what it's doing, but there needs to be this similar call to action. I think the private sector is going to be the powerhouse of innovation, but we really need to kind of kickstart, whether it's China, whether it's, you know, I think there are probably 3-4 technologies that, you know, quantum, AI, blockchain, crypto, advanced battery storage. There's a couple of things that we just want to win. You know, we have the Silicon Valley and all the tech industry because the silicon microchip was developed here. And like you're saying with the phones and all that. And so how that translates is I think we need to just help connect the dots where you all are already doing the innovation out there. And then I think there's a big translation function that it's like, let's go to the moon. Like we gotta beat the Soviet Union. I think the value prop is a lot clearer where it's easier to get dollars out of Congress. So my advice to you all is, you know, I love the tech, I love to get in the weeds, but you gotta simplify and connect to like, what is the benefit, what is the human impact? And I think that gets lost a lot. You know, Congress is a very reactive institution. Unfortunately, stuff has to go wrong for them to act, but we're not in that moment right now with technology. So when you're talking to policymakers, especially people that don't have as extensive of a technology background, I know the tendency is to want to explain all the cool stuff and all the technical capacities. But what I'm suggesting, because I just want to accelerate all this stuff, is just talk about people. What problem are you trying to solve? Like whether it's we got to beat China, financial inclusion, or whatever cause. If you know enough about this space, you can connect a use case to something a member of Congress cares about. And if you set that up, they will ask about the tech. You want them to ask about the details, but you have to queue up why they care first. And if I have any piece of advice, it's like you have to lead with the value prop or the human impact or the change you're trying to make, especially as a disruptive technology. I think it's way underestimated, the impact. You also have to acknowledge blockchain's not going to cure cancer, but the things it's going to help with, it's going to help a lot. So I think you have to have that level of credibility, admit some areas we need to work on, but also just jobs. You know, it's going to lower healthcare costs or whatever you do. And I think if you lead with the human impact, like you're helping to accelerate that. But for even members of Congress or agencies, I think can be very frustrated. But sometimes you have to dangle the carrot of the potential out there to really inspire action moving forward.
That's absolutely true, and it's important. It's a significant thing. I just want to simplify it one level. And that is, all of you who are not working for a federal agency out there have a superpower that you don't even know about. And here comes the big reveal. But it will make you so powerful it can be dangerous. So everyone please raise your right hand or leave the room and repeat after me, okay? I will use my newfound powers only for good. Okay, those of you who didn't take the oath, out. The rest of you, you have the superpower known as constituency. Constituents have a disproportionate impact on their elected representatives, particularly a member of Congress. Forget about the Senate. God and the founders created the Senate to stop legislation, good or bad, and they're really good at it. Okay, the action of the go mode comes from the House. If you don't know the name of your member of Congress, you've only got one, you got 2 senators, so it's another superpower. Okay, go to the internet, look it up, put in your zip code, find out who your member of Congress is. Okay, and then you've elected these poor public-spirited people, and then you've orphaned them. Shame, 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 okay? You know something of value, don't go throwing your boots at the Fox News screen. They can't hear that. It may be cathartic for you, but it's useless in terms of the process of a republic. Pick up the phone, but even better, write a letter to your member of Congress, personally, 1 page, get right to the point, tell them that you're a constituent, tell them who you are, tell them what you want them to do, and then get your friends to do that too, okay? Authentic, not astroturf. If you communicate the desirability of funding blockchain, for instance, or whatever turns you on, for the reason that it turns you on, that will have an extraordinary impact, particularly if you're willing to be persistent and to invite friends and colleagues to also make their voice heard. If you want to affect the policy outcomes, you need to communicate your insights as a constituent to your elected representative. True or false, Bill Rockwood?
Well, you're not, I'd say generally true. You said a lot of stuff there, so I'm not going to give you a blatant, but I agree, and I'll add one addendum: be passionate, be persistent, but be easy to work with.
Right.
You know, staff are very stretched thin. Young staff, you're trying to get in front of the policymaker, but don't undersell the staff. If you get somebody young and ambitious, like, this stuff's coming. The policymaker hears about it, they're going to have to say something, but don't undersell the staff's value, and just be easy to work with. If they have a technical question, answer it in straightforward terms, because they're going to be under a lot of pressure to write a 3-bullet point, you know, talking point thing. So the real nexus with all that is being easy to work with, getting a meeting with staff, and then it you know, all filters up the way I think you intend.
Thank you. That's a very valuable elucidation.
I'd like to comment on that,
Would you please?
if I may as well. First of all, I was very pleased to take the oath that you suggested. And
Goodness, because
very pleased. And
heavens only knows what evil you've done to date.
Yes, yes. So again, as I said, we are an international community. There's one particular project that we work on now, which has people from United States, Canada, Israel, Cyprus, United Kingdom, Germany, and maybe 4 or 5 other countries. Like, people are physically located, team members are physically located all over the world. This is one of the reasons why we have never applied for any country's government assistance. Yet, many speakers at this conference stressed that true innovation will only come as a process of interaction between the private sector and the government agencies, and I certainly support that. So now, having heard all of that and having taken the oath, we, like U.S. citizens like myself, we're going to come to U.S. government and ask for help. So thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Johnson, you get the last word.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess just one comment specific to blockchain. I talked a lot about our programs and so forth, but we currently have a portfolio of about 50 blockchain startups that we funded in our SBIR program. And so we are heavily involved in blockchain. We started funding distributed ledger technologies and blockchain technologies a number of years ago, and so I guess, you know, I say that to just, you know, point out that we are very, very interested in the technology. So if you have a technical innovation, you have a technical problem that you need to mitigate the risk associated with that, then we're a place to come and look for that first funding for your company. So.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you all, and I just want to let you know, those of you who took the oath, Kathy Daché is going to be watching you, and we enforce it. Thank you all.